It's a frustrating stretch for Heat fans after 3 straight losses, but who's to blame? A lot of options to choose from as we dish out some blame pie as Miami continues to struggle. Plus, Wednesday night is a huge matchup as the Denver Nuggets roll into the Kaseya Center. We'll preview the game and what it means for Miami's season on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com. Joining me as always is longtime NBA reporter David Ramil. However you're tuning in, YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. We're going to look ahead to what might be Miami's last chance for a statement win this season in a bit, but let's start with this 3-game losing streak, David. We talked about the disastrous loss to the Wizards on Sunday night, but we're going to zoom out now. I thought we could do like a little blame pie here, try to figure out what's going on, what's going wrong, and how the Heat can turn this thing around. And I think we have to start with Bam Adebayo. What are you seeing from him over these last 2 games, and are you concerned?
Ultimately, no. I don't think there's any long-lasting problems here. I don't think it's indicative of even his past struggles. I know a lot of people are making comparisons to how he's been in the past. I think Bam actually himself brought up a good point in his post-game presser about the difference between this season and last season that even he recognizes it. I mean, one of the things in the past was, you're not looking to score, you're not nearly aggressive enough on offense. And in this case, it's not that he's not aggressive, it's just that the shots aren't falling. And it's a slump. When he puts it that way, players go through slumps, even when they're 45% three-point shooters, or they're really incredible, historically good scorers. They go through slumps. It happens, especially as the season piles up and there's fatigue and there are all the other things that Bam provides on the floor. So I'm not concerned. It's not great. The timing of it is pretty poor, considering, again, that Miami has to win every game as they're trying to move their way up the standings, and that becomes more difficult when you lose an inexcusable game against the Washington Wizards. So it's not great, but I'm not overly concerned, and I don't think it's going to be something that's going to impact them over the last month of the season, and it certainly hasn't historically in the playoffs, at least not to the point where we see a much lesser version of Bam. Like, Bam has copped to the idea, the reality, I should say, that he was fatigued against Nikola Jokic. It's hard to guard Jokic even at full strength, even after multiple days of rest. So I don't know how much of a difference that would have made. He says it was a factor. I'm sure it was. At the same time, he was still impactful for the most part against Denver in the NBA Finals, and I would expect him to be impactful for Miami's playoff run, however long it lasts.
I think I agree with you that I'm not concerned, like in a panicky kind of way. I am taking notes here about what this looks like, because first, the averages over the last 3 games, and it's a small sample size, and you try not to make too much of it, but 11.7 points per game in these 3 losses, shooting 35% overall. He's missed 9 of his 18 free throws. We talked about that again after the Washington game. He's clearly tired, okay? That's a big part of this. He's not getting the same lift. He's shortbreading these free throws. I mean, it's fatigue, and those are all strong indicators of fatigue. His true shooting percentage is down to 39%, which is horrific, and that's a big part of the free throw misses. Is a big part of that. So those are that's sort of what we're dealing with here. And so the fatigue is a part of it. That mid-range jumper, that foul line jumper, has not been going in. He was hitting it at like a 45% clip for most of the season. When Miami won 11 of their 14 games, he was shooting that at like 47, 48%. And that's basically, and during the 7-game losing streak in January, he was making like 18% of those foul line jumpers. So maybe more than any other stat, like that might be the most important stat that the Heat have going for them. It's sort of the biggest sort of marker of, is this team in the midst of a losing streak or their best stretch of the season? It really depends on whether or not Bam's making those foul line jumpers. And he hasn't been making them over these last 3 games. And part of it is the fatigue. Part of it is how they've been schemed against. Cooper Moorhead from Heat.com had this great piece kind of diagramming like the defenses that they ran into in Dallas and Oklahoma City, and even the Wizards, who were playing without a center. But the thing that all 3 of those teams did was they loaded up the paint more than ever. They zoned up a lot. They sent everything towards the strong side when it was either Bam or Jimmy Butler, who we're going to talk about here in a minute, were either going one-on-one, isolations, post-ups, whatever. They were just loading up on those guys and forcing them to get either the ball out of their hands or make tough shots. And we've
Basically
seen
what
this,
Miami does against their opponents as well. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a mirror of what Miami's defense is.
We've seen this in the past, and Spo's talked about this, about, hey, when we see a new coverage to Bam, it's a couple of games, and then he's got to react to it. You break down the film, and then he goes, it's
The
a
counter
sign
to
of
the counter.
respect and all this stuff. And part of that is true, but Bam's got, like you just said, the counter to the counter. And what does Bam do to respond to that? And that's why I say I'm taking notes, because I think the world of Bam Adebayo as a basketball player, but you'd be lying if you said there was no ceiling on him offensively.
Right.
I think we know what he can be offensively, and I think he's past the ceiling most people already thought he had. So with that in mind, it's like, all right, how many more counters can this guy really have? Like, Nikola Jokic is the most unsolvable player in basketball. You said it's really difficult to defend him. It's impossible to defend him. We're at that point right now with Nikola Jokic. I don't ever anticipate Bam getting to that level. All right, so what is the ceiling for him offensively? Like, I don't really know. And I don't know, and I'm not saying that this 3-game sample size represents the ceiling. I'm just saying he needs
certainly
to
not.
he needs to grow from it too, because if you're another team in the East playoffs and you can watch these games and be like, "Oh, let's just dial up that scheme," because obviously that has an effect on Bam. So Bam's got to figure this out.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. You know, and also, interestingly enough, like Duncan's struggles kind of mirror your Bam struggles as well. Like, at least in the Washington game, and you wonder that, you know, their synergy has been the strong point of Miami's, and it's such a great 1-2 punch. It's like when Duncan is connecting on those shots, the floor opens up for Bam. You can't send that extra defender into the painted area because you're having somebody chase Duncan around, or you have to close out on Duncan when he's feeling it, etc. That's not necessarily the case. So I wonder whether or not we'll start to see, if one of them improves, maybe that alleviates the stress off of the other, etc. It's something to definitely monitor there.
The spacing could definitely help, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And obviously having Tyler Hero out doesn't help. Bam's minutes have ticked up a little smidge, not really enough where I'm kind of worried about it, but with Kevin Love out, it hasn't been easy on him. So I don't know. I do think, like, the Terry
Still no
Rozier,
update.
Bam Adebayo pick and roll.
Sorry. Just to add there, as of Tuesday afternoon, as we're recording, there's still no update regarding Tyler and Kevin Love, correct?
Right. Still nothing. So they haven't had to submit the injury report because it's Monday. So we'll probably know more.
Oh, sorry, it was
on
Monday
Tuesday.
report,
But
yeah, fair enough.
I do want to see them lean into the Terry Rozier, Bam Adebayo pick and roll a little bit more. That's actually, I watched the film on that this afternoon.
It's
And
working.
like, it's even better than I thought it was. Like, it seems like they've been playing together for like a season already, and it's only been a handful of games, and their pick and roll chemistry is far beyond what I thought it would be. And I just think it's a natural. Sometimes it just clicks with basketball players. You talk to basketball players all the time. They're like, sometimes just style of play just works. Sometimes it just clicks.
Yeah.
Terry and Bam are clicking, and I would like to see them go to more of that, to get Bam closer to the basket, more of those lobs. I pulled up this stat, and I want to get it right, but what do you think about the Terry Rozier, Bam Adebayo pick and roll there?
I think it's a legitimate weapon, and I think it's something that's going to be continued. Like we saw it with Tyler, like that development had steadily improving. You know, it's one thing to work alongside Duncan, who has had this chemistry with Bam for a number of years, and now to incorporate this revitalized, different version of Duncan has been a seamless one for both players. At the same time, with Tyler, it was a little bit more of a work in progress, being, you know, Tyler not necessarily a quote unquote playmaker and still kind
not
of
a natural passer at all. I still go back to John Calipari, what he told me on the phone once. He's like, he literally told Tyler Hero not to pass the ball during the first couple months at Kentucky. He was that bad of a passer.
But this season has represented his best one in terms of his playmaking, his passing, and everything else like that. And I think his relationship, his connection with Bam on the floor has really improved. And we saw a number of plays there where, I mean, over the course of the season, those numbers have worked. I don't have the stats exactly to show what they're like in pick and roll possessions, but I'm sure it's a lot better than it's been in years past.
And it has been a work in progress, and it has been, the stats have been better. I do have the Terry Rozier stat if you want it.
Oh, let's hear it.
So this is not just a Rozier and Adebayo stat. It's more of a Rozier stat. But as a team, the Heat recorded 22 alley-oop dunks in the first 42 games of the season. Okay, so it's like half of an alley-oop per game. Since Terry Rozier was acquired, they have 23 alley-oops in just 20 games. And Rozier missed a lot of those games too. But those are the stats. Like, Terry Rozier has come in and like reinvigorated the lob game for Miami, and Bam Adebayo has been the recipient on a lot of those. I would just guess like probably half of them have been to Bam, and
At
so
least.
right,
I mean,
at
Jimmy
least
a
easily.
handful, Haywood a couple, and
Haywood's
that's
been
about
part
it.
of it. Maybe Caleb,
Jaime?
maybe Jaime, but like Bam, an overwhelming amount. Hey, like keep doing it, spam it, keep going there. Like that's where you could see maybe Bam get some more easy shots, get that shooting percentage to tick up, get some more easy points for him.
Yeah.
We're not done talking about Miami stars when we're handing out blame pie. We should probably break out the percentages of this stuff too, because that's basically the idea of the segment. We're gonna talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by BetterHelp. Listen, it's a point in your life if you're thinking about, you've got something on your chest that you want to talk to somebody about, and whether it's something big, something small, but something that's been eating at you, or maybe just distracting you, or just causing a disruption in your life, and you want to talk to somebody, and you've got friends, you've got coworkers, but guess what? They might not always offer a different opinion, one that could lead you to recognizing that a change is necessary, somebody who's unbiased about what's happening in your life. So if that's the case and you want to talk to somebody, then maybe you've been thinking about giving therapy a try. And if you have, then BetterHelp is the option for you. It's entirely online. It's designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. You pick a therapist, you fill out a questionnaire, you're matched up with somebody, and you can talk to them online. You can talk to them by phone. It's everything that you want to do. And then if you have to change, maybe there's a difference in your work schedule, or something's come up and you know what, I can't meet with them every Monday or something along those lines. You can change. You can select a new therapist, and it's just that easy, because it's all convenient and it's all designed to make therapy more available for you. And I know there's a stigma on therapy, but if you're looking to talk to somebody and you want to give it a shot, then BetterHelp, again, is an option. Go visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA, and you get 10% off your first month. That's 10% off at BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Every dayers tune in on Wednesday morning for an exclusive interview with a Miami Heat fan favorite. You're not going to want to miss that. Plus, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Like this video. If you're watching on YouTube, comment. Let us know what you think. Who should be getting the most blame pie? David, I've got blame pie handed out to just two players. We already talked about one of them, Bam Adebayo. That's it. I got two guys. 60% of my pie is going to Bam. I got 40% going to Jimmy Butler. So we could take this in one of two ways. We could talk about Jimmy Butler now, or you could disagree with me about my pie allotment.
Yeah, that's an interesting allotment there. I think you've made the case before, and I probably, had I thought about it, would have seen you going this direction, because your idea is the team goes where your leaders go, where your best players go. And given that Bam and Jimmy are your best players, that makes a lot of sense. I've actually got 5 recipients of blame pie.
Wow.
So it's a little bit of a different number there. So we can open it up. Let me give you my percentages there, my slices of pie. Same like what, similar
Well,
allotment to yours.
Let's tease this. Let's keep the listeners hanging on here. Let's keep them. Do you have Jimmy getting pie?
Oh, without a doubt.
Okay, so you got
Without
Jimmy,
a
you do
doubt.
it, and I'm assuming you also have Bam. So
Same-
that's 2 of the 5.
Same ratio as you do, in terms of, like, Jimmy gets the bigger bulk of pie.
So how many slices do you have for Bam, and how many slices? Or did you do slices, or did you do percentages? I went percentages.
Slices,
I don't know why. You
slices.
went slices, 10 slices?
Yeah, slices.
Same thing with cookies?
Yeah.
All right,
yeah,
so how many
10
slices
slices.
for Jimmy, and how
Bam's
many
got
slices
3.
for Bam? Okay.
Jimmy gets 1 extra.
So Bam's got 3 slices. Jimmy's got 4.
4.
So that means that's 7. Look at me doing
That's
math.
right.
So you've got 3 players getting 3 slices.
I didn't say
coming
players. I said 3 people.
People. Ooh. Okay. I feel like, is one of them me? I don't know. We'll see. Jimmy Butler.
You're
let's talk about
rarely
Jimmy Butler.
responsible for Heat losses. So
Not according to a lot of people who tell me that I
no,
am.
those were Warriors losses. Like the fact that you went
No,
over
I'm still
there
getting
and
it.
jinxed that franchise.
I'm still
for
getting
2
it now.
seasons.
If I tweet something a little too early and then they lose, I'm like, Wes, this is your fault. Even if they come back and they still get the win, it's whatever. I accept it, though. I'm the mush, and I understand that, and that's fine. I live with it, and that's my life. Jimmy Butler, over these last 3 games, is averaging 19 points on 48% shooting, 5.7 rebounds, and 5.7 assists. It's not bad. especially when you compare that to Bam. It's fine. These are fine numbers. Here's the difference, is that when Jimmy Butler was, that's not all NBA numbers. That's kind of what he's been doing all year. And the biggest difference for Miami this season has been, and I know I just said it was Bam's foul line jumpers, but really what it's been is when Jimmy Butler turns it up a notch into all NBA caliber play. And then that's why Miami won 11 out of 14 games, is because Jimmy Butler was playing like that. I don't know what happened over these last 3 games. Some of it is the shading that these defenses are doing on him. And I think he has had to adjust to that. But like Jimmy Butler's seen every coverage at this stage of his career. So I give him less of a pass on this than I do for Bam, who is still young compared to Jimmy at this stage. He needs to be better. And you look at these 3 games. He was outscored by Luka 34-14. He was outscored in Oklahoma City by SGA 37-20. David, he was outscored by Kyle Kuzma 32-23 in Sunday's game and nearly got outscored by Corey Kispert, who had 22 points in that game. They need a better Jimmy Butler. They need all-NBA Jimmy Butler. I know he doesn't want to be all-NBA Jimmy Butler all the time. We're not asking for all the time. We're just asking for 18 more games and the playoffs. But if they are going to get out of the play-in tournament and get a top 6 seed, which is all I care about. I don't care if they're 4, 5, or 6. I really don't care. This team does not need home court advantage in the playoffs. But they do need to be a top 6 seed. And you can't drop games like you did against Washington. And I don't know that this team can afford another 3-game losing streak for the rest of the season, especially considering how easy the most of the schedule is. So that's why I've got 40% of that blame pie to Jimmy Butler. But I'm more concerned, I think, about Jimmy's outlook than I am even Bam's.
I mean, they've done things to, just as you described, scheming in order to minimize what Bam, as far as his open looks are concerned. I think they've done a pretty good job. Dallas in particular challenged him in a way. I think Oklahoma City did a pretty good job of that too. Washington, Washington, I don't think they really did much to limit his opportunities. I don't know. I maybe I'd have to rewatch the game.
He did get 20 shots up, which was that's a lot for Jimmy, right? And so to your point, he was just missing a bunch of them. And that's why I'm like, okay, so and that's, you're going to double him, fine. But like I said, Jimmy's seen these coverages before, you know? Is it a fatigue thing for him too? Can he not be engaged at an all NBA level for more than 14 games in a row? I do wonder.
I don't think he was as much as Jimmy would indicate, and maybe this is going out too far in terms of our scope here. I think despite whatever Jimmy has always said, I don't think Jimmy ever expected him to be your 1A. Like, I know he would never say this, obviously, and he believes it. I don't, given how his upbringing and his collegiate career and the start of his NBA career in Chicago and everything else like that, like he has become a 1A, but he's never been the typical kind of 1A. We've made this point before. Like his game is more in the mud. He's more about the ancillary stuff. The scoring has never been his primary focuses. And so when a team like Miami needs it as desperately as they do, and he doesn't come up big in those situations, it's easy to say, you know what, you should have done more. And so I think that's kind of where we are right now. This is who Jimmy Butler has always been throughout his career. And his Heat stint has not been any different in that regards. There have been moments where, especially in the playoffs, where we see Jimmy and we go, okay, this is one of the top 10 players in the league. And then there are, a good 40-game sample over the course of the regular season where we go, this is a guy who's a really good player, but he just doesn't care, or he just doesn't want to do it, or he's just not capable of it. I don't know. I don't know.
He's pretty much, he basically told Chris Haynes this the other week. He's like, he paces himself. He really doesn't care until the All-Star break. And then it's after the All-Star break that he kicks it into gear. But
maybe he has to check the calendar.
Right. Like, it's like you're going on record and saying this. It's like, where'd that gear go? Like, he just turned it, but he just went back to neutral. Like, what's going on here? He's idling right now in the parking lot for 19 points a game. That's not good enough, And so, look, I'm being a little, I think, facetious when I say, like, I have bigger concerns about Jimmy Butler. He's going to turn this around. He knows what he's doing at this stage. Like, I trust Jimmy Butler to figure this part out. But if we're looking, again, for reasons why the Heat have dropped these last 3 games, it's because Jimmy Butler has not been playoff Jimmy for 3 games. He just hasn't, right? And you can't go up again. I know Luka is an MVP candidate and SGA is an MVP candidate. I'm not asking you to play like them, during a regular season when those guys have just been stacking numbers during the regular season. But you can't get outscored by 20 by Luka and outscored by Kyrie Irving in that same game. I didn't even mention that before. And you can't get outscored by 17 by SGA. You got to keep it a little bit closer to give your team a chance, because if that star player is outscoring your star player that much, that's why I always say your team goes as your star goes. Like, you're getting yourself behind the 8 ball, and then asking Caleb Martin to bail yourself out of it. Like that's just not how the
it's the
NBA
free
works.
throws too. The free throws is such a big problem. He's taking less attempts and he's not hitting them as well. And I think that's just, I don't know. There was a statistic that that Adam Silver has made a focus of not calling as many fouls as trying to open things up or help defensive opportunities there. So I don't know how much of that has factored in the last couple of games, but that's a big part of what Jimmy relies on, is getting those calls to help kind of build up some of those numbers offensively. And so you wonder if he's going to be able to continue to get those calls moving forward. So I don't know. That is something I'd like to monitor.
It's a good point. Ethan Sherwood Strauss wrote a piece about the free throw shooting on his Substack, and I recommend people read that. You've got, that's all my blame pie. You still got pie for 3 other players. We're going to do that on the other side of the break. Plus, one thing that the Heat absolutely have to do to beat the Nuggets on Wednesday. We'll tell you what that is after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan Motors. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further, maybe? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. We'll start off with the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's a perfect combination for city and adventurous driving, not necessarily off-road, but if you want to get out of town for a little bit. I've told you before, I've driven a Rogue. I love it. It's a great car. It's perfect for driving around the city. It's got a nice kick to it. It's got the speed that you're looking for, zooming around town. But if you want to get away for a little bit, guess what? The Rogue's got you covered. There's so much to enjoy about the Rogue, their infotainment system, all of their features. You won't find a better midsize SUV than that. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. But if you're looking for something a little bit bigger, well, guess what? Try the Nissan Pathfinder. The 2024 Pathfinder has a room for up to 8 passengers, an expansive cargo capacity, and an advanced available 4x4 capability. It's got 284 horsepower for the kind of speed that you're looking for, the maneuverability, whatever you might need, you'll find it in the Pathfinder. But if you're looking for something even bigger still, then try the 2024 Nissan Armada. It will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. This is a rugged 4x4 vehicle that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Great car. Saw it in the dealership. Really, really nice looking car. It's just a great line of SUVs. So if you're looking to try something new, take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Go shop nissanusa.com.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. If you'd be interested in joining us for a watch party for a game in April, please let us know in the comments. We are not even yet at the point of organizing it. We are more just trying to gather information and determine whether or not y'all would even be interested in doing a watch party.
We heard some yeses.
We've gotten a lot of yeses already. If you're in the South Florida area and you're willing to stop by a bar at some point in April probably to watch a road game with us, let us know in the comments. We need to know if you're interested before we put the work in to organize.
If you own a bar, we'd love to. If you own or manage a bar, you want to get some Locked On Heat participation, bring a large, amazing fan base of really passionate fans, and reach out. We'd love to be able to have an event at your little place.
David drinks a lot of beer, so he'll keep you open.
Eat food, drink beer.
You got a stout.
Oh,
let us know.
That's the only thing. It's got to be a stout. Sorry.
I'm the opposite. I'm a lager. I like light beer that tastes like water.
Oh, lager's fine.
You like dark beer.
Don't give me IPAs. Beer. Yeah, don't give me an IPA though. That's an insult.
You don't want the hops?
Humanity. No, God no.
I'm not like a malty guy. That's why I don't do the stouts. I like the malt. I try to. It doesn't matter. All right.
A friend of mine says that you only have one who can. A beer I have to chew. That's what it is basically, and I agree with that.
That's called tobacco.
Chewable.
Right. Before we get to the Nuggets preview, you have 3 slices of blame pie. You have 3 players. I venture to guess, but I think it's people. People. All right, go ahead. Let's go.
Bernie, the Heat mascot, deserves one. No, I've got one for Duncan Robinson. I mentioned before. I think shooting numbers are a little not concerning. I think it's just been a little problematic. Maybe he's going through a slump too. I can't be too hard on him because again, he's not expected to carry the bulk of the offense. But as the pressure release for Miami's offense at times, I just haven't seen what we've seen from him in the win streak prior to that. So we'd like those numbers to get juiced up a little bit. But I guess
38% from 3 of the last 5 games. I just think that the misses are so loud, especially at the end of these games. This would not be a 3-game losing streak had he hit a couple of those threes at the end of or even one of those threes at the end of the Washington.
Would we be talking about the team had he hit one of those 3 losses?
No, so it's fair. You know where I am. I got Bam and Jimmy, and that's all the blame pie I'm handing out. But I can see your argument on Duncan. Who's the next one?
He gets one slice. I know I'm going to get crap for it. But as our good friend Ben Golliver says, availability is the best ability, and I'm going to give one slice of blame pie to Tyler. Like he's not playing, and that's the problem. He's not playing, and he's too many instances of not playing. And I know the growing concern among the fan base that has turned on him is he injury prone, and I don't think I'm quite there yet, but it's starting to be a concern. And I know a lot of these things have freak injury kind of things wrapped up into the course of an 18-game season.
the towel guys in New Orleans who didn't wipe that part of the floor where he hyperextended his knee, and then that turned into a foot thing.
That's his janky movement. That really is. That's the way he.
So you are blaming him.
Plants his foot. Yeah, I mean,
you're blaming his.
I can't blame a guy for getting hurt.
Strategy.
There's. I don't know. I'm
blaming him. That's the whole point of blame pie, is that you're blaming him. So, all right. So Tyler Hero not playing. All right. Who's the last one?
Spo. Spo gets a slice.
I'm interested to hear your reasoning on this. I thought about Spo, but I didn't, just because I thought about everybody, and I was like, I don't know that I would have made any changes to what he did, But I'm also not a basketball coach.
Yeah, I don't know. Trying Nico at center.
That was good.
Too many minutes for Thomas Bryant. Not enough minutes for Thomas Bryant. I mean, Orlando Robinson, I think, was solid in his brief showing against the Washington Wizards, and yet didn't get more opportunity. I mean, you've got the two-way guys. You never want to be your answer, but this happened last year, like when Jamal Cain had his few brief flashes, and why everybody was so hyped up about what his potential was. Is that sometimes you throw things out there and hope that it sticks and hope that it pops. And I don't know that he's done that as much, and certainly I think that's
he's throwing Patty Mills in there. He's throwing him in the mix.
Yeah, well, and then that's another point that's the thing is, like, again, you rewatch the game, you saw how bad Miami was defensively. As much as they needed Mills' offense, they probably could have used DeLon Wright's defense out there, at least in containing drives and stopping, maybe forcing a turnover that leads to another opportunity at the other end. And that's why he had quote unquote Jaime out there, right? But that's not good enough rationale for keeping DeLon Wright. You sign him, you hope he plays. You saw what he could do in his limited opportunities, and then it's like, well, now we're just going to banish you. And I don't know why that is. And
like I told you,
they haven't said it. They haven't provided any clarification. And he did talk about it before yesterday's game, and then we go to another game where you're signing 35-year-old vet Patty Mills, and he's ignitable. He's
had good stretches. Like, I'm not blaming.
I'm not blaming Patty at all.
He's been a microwave scorer off the bench. I think he's been really valuable. In terms of the two-way guys, you don't play those guys at this point in the year. Like, you got to start ramping up. Like, those guys can't be they can't play in the playoffs. You got to figure out your playoff rotations. You got to figure out your playoff minutes patterns and your combinations and all these things. But the DeLon Wright thing is curious. Like, I'll hear you on that, and maybe Eric Spoelstra could have found a counter to all the strong side zoning and shading and the doubles on Jimmy Butler maybe a little bit earlier. I also don't think that they walked into Washington thinking that was going to be a problem. And maybe that's on Spo too, that they may have overlooked the Wizards a little bit. There was some quotes after the game kind of suggesting that maybe they did overlook them a little bit.
He said that he specifically said that it wasn't when he wasn't asked about it. So I wonder whether or not that might have been kind of burring in the back of his head somewhere. Yeah. Where it was like, we were looking at it, and we just kind of took it.
Right. It's like it's like lying before you have to lie. It's like,
right. No, we totally weren't doing what I was just thinking. Yeah.
I was at work. I wasn't at the bar. What are you talking about? He's like, what? I just asked you if you needed anything from the store. All right, let's look ahead to Wednesday night's game against Denver. We're doing that now because we have our interview coming up with a Heat fan favorite on Tuesday, so we won't have a chance to talk about this game in depth until then. But look, I'm looking at the last box score. I think that for the Heat and the Nuggets game, the Heat, it was a narrow loss to Denver. We kind of walked away from that thinking, okay, feeling a little bit better about where Miami is.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit of a moral victory, whatever. Here's the thing. There's no more chances for moral victories for the rest of the season because Miami, fortunately, has one of the easiest schedules left in the season. The other part about that is you look at the schedule, and is maybe one opportunity to make a statement win the rest of this season. And it's not college football. The statement wins don't matter. It doesn't get you into the college football play. Like, it doesn't really matter in that way. But I do
Sure.
think it matters for Miami in terms of proof of concept, gaining steam, gaining confidence, getting that momentum that you want to be riding into the playoffs with. And this game against Denver, like, you look at the schedule, it's the only top-notch game left. I mean, you've got games against Philadelphia coming up, but we have no idea when Joel Embiid's going to come back or if those games are even going to matter. And
Yep.
that's really it. Like, that's all that's left. And so you look at Wednesday night at home against the Nuggets, NBA Finals rematch. I think the Heat are going to want to make a statement. I think they're going to come out very motivated. Obviously, the Nuggets are probably the best team in the league right now. They're playing out of their minds right now. Huge win against Boston the other night. But if you could get a win on your home court against Denver, something you couldn't do in the NBA Finals last year, I think that would be huge for Miami's confidence going into the playoffs. What do you think?
Oh, huge. I think it kind of erases what's happened over the last 3 games, and maybe that's just more of the
Yes.
fickle nature of fandom. Even ourselves as media members, you kind of what have you done for
Well,
me lately? But
I think they would think the same thing, though.
yeah, exactly. That's the whole point, and I think it would go a long way towards helping Bam shake off whatever funk he's got. If Jimmy could have a strong showing, like if you get these kind of performances for these players that we've talked about, then all of a sudden the ship feels righted. You can go into a 2-game trip against Detroit and feel much better about that opportunity. It doesn't mean that you can take those games for granted. You can't take any game for granted. But if you can have a strong showing and one that results in a win, like honestly, we're at a point, and I think you kind of said it best. If moral victories won't be enough, like you
Not
have
in
to
this
come
one.
out with a victory. Yeah, you have to be able to beat Denver. And if you can do what you did against Nikola Jokic specifically defensively, I think he had a subpar game in Denver. That was a little unexpected, and Miami still lost by 6. I will say this, and I texted you this. I don't know how much it matters for all of Boston's quote unquote superiority. They still lost by 6 against Denver too. So I think this is more indicative of how good Denver is, whether Boston is much better than Miami or anything else. And maybe this is the wrong time after the Heat just lost to the Wizards. But either way, if the Heat want to control their destiny and want to be able to show everybody that they're capable and that they should be considered a team that is capable of beating anybody else in the NBA, it starts at home. It starts at Denver.
Get over the mountaintop, and then you've got momentum going down the other side of the mountain and going into the playoffs. You could really build some steam going in here. The one thing I think they do have to do that they did not do in Denver in this last matchup, they have to get up more threes. They absolutely have to get up more threes. They went 7 of 26 from three-point range in that game against the Nuggets, and so that's 27%. And that was the number most people focused on is, oh my God, they only shot 27% from 3. My thing is they only got up 26 of them. And Denver, who takes fewer threes than even Miami, got up 34 three-point attempts. And Miami's defense does allow for a certain amount of three-pointers. They try to take the ones away from the corner. You'll get them away from the break. But that math does not work when the Nuggets are so dominant in the paint. Jokic is not going to he's not going to go 6 for 15 for 18 points. He's not. He's not going to do that twice against the same team. That's not how he rolls. No. So we're expecting the Nuggets to outscore Miami in the paint because that's what they do to every team in the league. Okay, well then where are you going to get these points back? You can't really get them back in the mid-range, right? Because if Denver's going to shoot 60% at the rim, then that means you got to shoot 60% from the mid-range to keep up, and that's just not going to happen, right? They're probably going to like the best team in the league shoots like 46% from mid-range, so that's just not going to work. So you got to make it up from the three-point line. That's where Boston made up that's where they kept that game close against the Nuggets the other night, and it's what the Heat have to do. The problem is that for the Celtics, that's part of their profile. Where the Heat, that's not part of their profile, but in this game, it's going to have to be, right? And that means big games for Duncan, probably some Patty Mills minutes. Jimmy Butler's got to get that three-point shot going again. Like it's going to come from everywhere, though.
The return of Kevin Love, if he does come back, I think certainly would help too. Like, I mean, I know that's expecting a lot. You just come back after missing a handful of games. And it's like, well, let's hope you can knock down at least 3 or 4 3-pointers, but they also can't give up 70% shooting to Michael Porter Jr. and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Like those guys just have like so many wide open looks from 3, and they were drilling those with ease. So you wonder how much they will be able to replicate the success they had in Denver.
So we have our interview with a Miami Heat fan favorite on we're doing that Tuesday. That'll come out Wednesday with Kyle Lowry, our old friend. We're doing that Tuesday afternoon. That'll come out Wednesday morning, and then we'll have our recap from Kaseya Center. I am so excited to watch this game. Heat Nuggets. We'll be recapping it from the arena on Wednesday night. That's for you everydayers out there. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on your podcast app.